If you enjoy health contents like this, please share it with your friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. We post new videos daily to keep you informed, transformed, and inspired. Thanks for sharing.
Now the doctor, he was actually a chemist that made the germ theory famous, is Louis Pasteur. And everyone loved Louis Pasteur's theory because Louis Pasteur said, "You poor thing, you're so sick. A germ has jumped on you and made you sick. Take this drug to kill that germ." But it actually defies reason, that theory. There was another contemporary at the time of Louis Pasteur named Antoine Bechamp. And this Frenchman said disease is caused in us and of us. See, the two totally different theories. But no one really likes that theory. Disease is born in us and of us. Everyone liked Pasteur's theory because it takes away all responsibility for what's happening in the body. It's like the gene theory, genes cause disease. That takes away all responsibility for what's happening in my body. I'm blaming it on the genes or I'm blaming it on the germs. And in 2020, the whole world shut down because of a germ. But you know, a virus cannot live without a host. And why is it there? That's what we should be asking. Why is the bacteria there? Why are the yeast, fungus or virus there? Why is the mold there? And the CDC figures in 2021, 98% of people that came down with this virus recovered. So there was actually no need to shut the whole world down. And the ones that did go down had pre-existing health conditions. One girl said to me, "My mother, she got so sick she had to be taken to hospital, even put on a ventilator." And I've spoken to many nurses that work in ICU in 2021, 2022. They said as soon as they go on the ventilator and the respirator, they die. It causes kidney damage. So I said to this lady, "Your mother, she's 50, she's quite healthy." I wondered why she went down so badly, and I investigated. Always put the detective hat on, because there's always a reason. And as I investigated, I couldn't find fault with the lady lives healthy. Then I discovered there's mold in the house. You see, mold can get into your body through the skin. You can breathe it in, and you can swallow it or go into the food, and it also can be transferred sexually. And I went, aha. So there was already a problem happening in her body, and this just tipped the scales. You've heard of the straw that broke the camel's back, and that happened in many cases. It was just the last straw. But let's have a look at Antoine Bechamp and why he said disease is born in us and of us. He spent most of his life looking through a microscope. 6 times professor. Most of us will never get to 1. 6 times professor, this guy. He knew his stuff. And he got a dead cat one day doing an experiment. Got a dead cat, wrapped it in an airtight container. Now what happens if a cat dies in the bush? I'll tell you what happens in Australia. The dung beetles come up, the blowflies lay their eggs and the maggots start to eat it up. The kookaburra has a nibble, the crow has a nibble, the dingo has a nibble. These are all the vultures, isn't it? The scavengers that help to bring matter back to dust. But Antoine Bechamp, airtight container, no dung beetles, no worms, airtight container. After 4 months, he opened the container and the cat was dust. So what brought cat back to dust? The ultimate cell damage is death. So when the cat died, the microorganisms that played an integral role of living, running cat took off their suit of clothes, so to speak, and put their rubber gloves and apron on and became the garbage collectors, the clean-up team. As the environment changed, the exterminators. As the environment changed, the undertakers. Till eventually, cat was back to dust. What does the preacher say at the funeral? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. What's he referring to? He's referring to the fact that in that coffin, soon that matter will come back to dust. It's the cycle of life. With great excitement, Antoine Bechamp took the dust, put it under a microscope. It was alive with microorganisms. From the dead cat. Remember the basic law of science? Nothing's created and nothing's destroyed. It just changes form. And this is why we have compost bins. Here's a plant in my garden at Misty Mountain. We have 3 compost bins at Misty Mountain. And we put scraps from the kitchen, we put weeds from the garden. We like to alternate scraps from the kitchen and especially the corn stalks and the broccoli stalks, keeps it a little bit more aerated. And I put the compost into my soil. I always put compost in before I put another crop in. What am I putting into my soil when I put compost in? I'm putting in microorganisms. So I have 3 compost bins at home. They're about a yard by a yard. We call it a metre by a metre. 1 I'm adding to. 1 is sitting, waiting for the cycle of life to bring all the matter back to dust. The 3rd compost bin, I know it's ready because tomato plants are coming up out of it, pumpkin plants are coming, sometimes pawpaw plants are coming out of it. And I've got a photograph of me squatting in the compost bin, not the other 2. The one that's back to dust, and I'm smelling, and it smells like beautiful earth. It's ready to go into my garden, and it's full of microorganisms. Let's follow the life of the apple. It's microorganisms that cause the flower to develop. It's microorganisms that cause the apple to develop. But the apple's not ready to eat. It's too bitter. Has to ripen. What ripens the apple? The same microorganisms. They change roles according to the environment. And then no one eats the apple. What happens to the apple? It rots under the actions of the same microorganisms. They just change roles. Antoine Bechamp gave another illustration. Mother hen sitting on 10 eggs. Someone comes and shakes the egg violently and puts the egg back under mother hen. They come back 2 weeks later, and little chickens are coming out. Where's the egg they shook? Mother hen has booted it out of the nest because of a bad smell. Gives off a pretty bad smell, all this stuff, doesn't it? What happened inside the egg? It's a sealed unit. Nothing came in there. It's a sealed unit. When I shook it, I caused massive cell damage. The microorganisms that would have been part of developing little chicken had to now change roles. They now took their suit of clothes off, so to speak, put their rubber gloves and apron on and became the garbage collectors, then the exterminators, till the undertakers, till eventually that rotten egg is what? Back to dust. It's the cycle of life. And so if any ever bacteria, yeast, fungus, mold are about, we've got to find out why. Why is it there? Florence Nightingale. Florence Nightingale, she was asked to go to Scutari. Scutari is the port where the Crimean War, wounded were being taken. Crimean War, British and the French were fighting the Russians. This is the Black Sea. The men were wounded were put in boats, taken down to Scutari. A war correspondent went there and discovered that 50% of the young men that got into that hospital were dying because it was filthy, raw sewage in the corridors. And so the British government asked Florence to go there and see what she could do. And she was, as a woman, she knew her limitations, and the doctor said, "You're not coming in here, this is men's business." They wouldn't even let her come in. So she went to the kitchen and it was filthy there. So she contacted the British government and said, "We need a sanitary commission to come and assess the situation." And this is what they found. The hospital was built in a swamp. And it was ex-army Turkish barracks. It wasn't even originally built as a hospital. And they found a dead horse in the swamp, and the men were drinking the water out of that swamp. Dead dog, another one, dead dog in the swamp. I'm shocked that the death rate wasn't 80%. Isn't it incredible what the human body endures? So very quickly, they got the drainage happening. They got the drainage happening in the hospital, so there was no more raw sewage in the corridors. Started to boil the water. Florence Nightingale was eventually allowed to come in because another shipload of wounded came, 1,400 wounded men. Hospital was already overflowing, so they let her in and she started cleaning and scrubbing. Within 2 months, the death rate went from 50% to 2%. When she went back to England, I think 14 months later, Queen Victoria, Prince Albert were there to welcome her. Big welcoming party. Oh, how they loved Florence Nightingale. She was saving the lives of their young men. And when she saw the welcoming party, she changed her name to Mary Smith, went down the back gangplank and went home. They said, "Why did you do that?" She said, "I'm not a heroine." She said, "I just increased hygiene, sanitation and nutrition." Got that? Hygiene, what's that? Keep the body clean. Sanitation, keep the house clean. And nutrition, you cannot heal without nourishment. This is back in 1850. 1854 she first went there. She knew that germs don't cause disease, and when she read of Louis Pasteur's theory that germs cause disease, she said, "This is the theory of a man of a very unstable mind." And anyone who believes it is equally unstable, because germs don't cause disease, they're the result of unhealthful conditions. These microbes play a very important part on the planet. You see, in the soil, these microorganisms, they are responsible for the final breakdown of the minerals. They're responsible for the absorption of the minerals out of the soil and into the plant. These microbes protect the plant against any harmful pathogens that might be in the soil. These microorganisms nourish the plant. And the plant knows that it needs those microorganisms, so 50% of the fuel that it makes from photosynthesis, it sends back down to the roots to feed the microbes. It's almost as if the plant's saying, "Please stay, we'll feed you well." That's why the organically grown fruits and vegetables have a far higher mineral content, because of the microbes in the soil. And every time you put compost in the soil, you're putting more microbes in the soil. Soil should be live. Lining the gastrointestinal tract are villi that look just like the roots of a plant. They are lined with what we call the microbiome, the healthy or the friendly bacteria, Lactobacillus acidophilus, bifidus bacteria, and they line the villi with that. Can you pull that for me? Hand's not as strong yet. Thank you. Lined with these microorganisms, and these bacteria in the gut, they are responsible for the final breakdown of our food. They're responsible for the absorption out of the gut and into the blood. They protect the blood against harmful pathogens. They nourish the cells that line the gastrointestinal tract. Thank you. Are you starting to see that these microbes aren't our enemy? They're an integral part not only of life on planet Earth, but also in the human body. The human body was designed to heal itself. We just need to know how it runs. Because when we know how the body works, then we can work with that to bring about what the body can do and does very well when we let it, to bring about healing in the body. I'm going to give everyone a break now. We're going to have a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we're going to go one step further in our study of microorganisms.